The alien ships came from the dark between the stars like hunters who had found their prey. 12 massive vessels appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system, each one bigger than anything humans had ever built. Their hulls gleamed with a strange blue light, and rows of weapons covered their surfaces like angry eyes staring at the small blue planet in the distance. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of Earth Defense Station Olympus, watching the enemy fleet through the large viewing window. The station floated in space between Earth and Mars, built to protect humanity's homeworld from exactly this kind of threat. But as Morrison looked at the alien ships, he wondered if they had built enough defenses. "Sir, we're getting their message." "Again," said Lieutenant Danny Park from his position at the communications console. His young face showed fear, but his voice remained steady. "They're broadcasting on every frequency we use." Morrison nodded and activated the main screen. The image that appeared made everyone on the bridge go quiet. The alien leader was tall and thin, with skin that looked like it was made of living crystal. Its eyes glowed with a cold blue light, and when it spoke, its voice carried the tone of someone who had never been told no. "People of the third planet," the alien said, its words coming through the universal translator in perfect English. "I am Admiral Kexvara of the Zephyrian Confederation. We rule over 400 star systems across this part of the galaxy. Your species has shown some promise, so we offer you a choice." The alien paused, and Morrison could see the cruel smile on its face. "Submit to our rule and join our empire as our servants, or face the power of our weapons. You have 72 hours to decide." The message ended, and the bridge fell silent. Morrison looked around at his crew. These were good people, trained soldiers who had signed up to defend Earth from unknown threats. Now that threat was here, and it was bigger than anyone had imagined. "Amy, what do our sensors tell us about their ships?" Morrison asked his tactical officer. Lieutenant Commander Amy Rodriguez. Rodriguez pulled up the scan results on her console. "Each ship is over 2 kilometers long, sir. Their weapons show energy readings 3 times higher than our best cruisers. The computer estimates that just one of their ships could destroy our entire Pacific fleet." Morrison felt his stomach drop. Earth's Space Navy had 43 ships, mostly small frigates and destroyers. They had a few cruisers, but nothing that could match the size and power of the alien vessels. On paper, it looked like humanity had no chance at all. "Sir," called out Ensign Kelly Brooks from the sensor station, "I'm detecting movement in their fleet. One of their ships is breaking formation and heading toward the inner system." Morrison watched as the alien ship moved with smooth, deadly grace. It was heading toward the asteroid belt, where human mining operations pulled precious metals from the floating rocks. Most of the miners had been evacuated when the alien fleet first appeared, but there were still a few automated stations running. "They're going to make an example," Morrison said quietly. "They want to show us what happens to those who resist." The alien ship stopped near Mining Station Beta 7, an old facility that had been shut down 6 months ago when the asteroid ran out of useful ore. The station was empty, but it was big enough to make an impressive target for the aliens to destroy. Admiral Kexvara's voice came over the communications again. "Watch carefully, humans. This is what awaits your world if you choose to resist." The Confederation. The alien battleship began to glow as it charged its main weapon. Morrison had seen weapons tests before, but nothing like this. Energy built up along the ship's hull, creating patterns of light that hurt to look at directly. The charging process took almost 10 minutes, during which Kexvara provided commentary about how powerful his fleet was and how foolish it would be for humanity to fight when the weapon finally fired. It was like watching a small star being born. A beam of pure energy crossed the space between the alien ship and the mining station in seconds. The beam hit the station dead center, and the entire structure simply vanished. Where there had been a kilometer-long mining platform, there was now only glowing gas and tiny pieces of debris. The demonstration was over, but its message was clear. The aliens had weapons that could destroy anything humanity had built, and they were not afraid to use them. "Impressive," Morrison said, but his voice was calm. "Amy, did you notice anything interesting about their weapon?" Rodriguez studied her sensor readings carefully. Yes, sir. The energy buildup took over 10 minutes. And look at this data. She highlighted sections of the scan results. While they were charging the main gun, power levels dropped all across their ship. Life support, gravity, secondary weapons, everything was reduced to minimum power to feed. The main weapon. Morrison smiled for the first time since the aliens had arrived. Very interesting indeed. Danny, has Earth Command responded to our earlier message? Yes, sir, Park replied. Director Lisa Hamilton says to proceed with Phase 2, whatever that means. Morrison's smile grew wider. Phase 2 was something that very few people knew about, even within Earth's military. It was humanity's greatest secret, built over the past 5 years in complete secrecy. The aliens thought they were dealing with a primitive species that had barely learned to travel between planets. They were about to learn how wrong they were, deep underground in the Colorado Mountains, Director. Hamilton stood in a command center that officially did not exist. The room was filled with screens showing information from across the solar system, but most of the data would make no sense to anyone who did not know about humanity's real defenses. Colonel Carter, Hamilton said to her aide, are our assets in position? Colonel Ben Carter checked his tablet. All systems are ready, ma'am. The Zephyrians have no idea what they're really looking at. Hamilton nodded. She was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes, but she had been planning for this day for years. Earth's public space fleet was real, but it was also a distraction. While the aliens focused on humanity's visible ships, they completely missed the real threat. Ma'am, Carter said, should we inform the public about the alien fleet? Hamilton considered the question. The people of Earth knew that first contact with aliens was possible, but they had no idea it would happen like this. Panic would not help anyone right now. Not yet, she decided. First, let's see how arrogant these Zephyrians really are. Send a message to Captain Morrison. Tell him to act impressed by their demonstration and ask for more details about their weapons. Carter looked confused. Ma'am, why would we want to encourage them? Hamilton's smile was sharp as a blade. Because, Colonel, the best way to win a war is to let your enemy think they have already won. The Zephyrians are so confident in their superiority that they are not looking for threats they do not expect to find. Back on Olympus Station, Morrison received his new orders and understood immediately. He opened a communication channel to the alien fleet. Admiral Kexvara, Morrison said, making his voice sound worried and impressed. That was an incredible display of power. Our scientists would be very interested to learn more about your technology. Kexvara's crystal face showed pleasure at the apparent human fear. Your species shows wisdom in recognizing superior force. Perhaps you will make adequate servants after all. Morrison gritted his teeth but kept his voice level. We would like to discuss the terms of surrender. Could you provide more details about your weapons and ships? Our leaders need to understand what they are facing. The alien admiral was happy to boast about Zephyrian technology. For the next hour, he provided detailed information about their plasma weapons, their ship designs, and their military tactics. Every word was recorded and analyzed by human scientists who were looking for weaknesses. What Kexvara did not know was that while he was talking, humanity's real fleet was moving into position. Ships that had been hidden for years were powering up their systems and preparing for battle. The Zephyrians had made a critical mistake. They had given humanity time to prepare, and they had revealed their capabilities while learning nothing about what humans could really do. The trap was set. Soon, the aliens would learn that humanity had not survived and thrived by being weak. They had survived by being smart, by being prepared, and by never revealing their true strength until it was too late for their enemies to respond. Admiral Kexvara thought he was negotiating with primitives. He was about to discover that he had walked into the lair of the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. The hours after the alien demonstration passed slowly on Earth, in cities around the world, people watched their screens and waited for news about what their leaders would decide. Most believed they were watching the end of human independence. The alien ships were too big, too powerful, Too advanced for Earth's small fleet to fight, but in the secret command center deep under the Colorado mountains, Director Lisa Hamilton was not worried about the alien ultimatum. She was worried about timing. Everything had to happen exactly right, or humanity's greatest secret would be revealed too early. "Status report on all hidden assets," she ordered Colonel Ben Carter. Carter read from his secure tablet. "The Leviathan reports all systems ready. Captain Morrison confirms that Olympus Station is prepared for the reveal. Mars Base 7 has confirmed that their hidden installations are powered up and ready. The Jupiter construction yards report that all camouflage ships are in position." Hamilton nodded. The Jupiter construction yards were humanity's greatest achievement and their greatest secret. While the aliens saw only a few small research stations around the giant planet, the reality was very different. Hidden in Jupiter's shadow were shipyards, larger than any city on Earth, protected by technology that made them invisible to most sensors. "What about our friends in the asteroid belt?" Hamilton asked. "All mining platforms have been converted to their combat configurations," Carter replied. "The aliens think they are looking at simple or processing stations. They have no idea that each one can transform into a weapons platform in under 10 minutes. Hamilton allowed herself a small smile. Humanity had learned long ago that the best place to hide something was in plain sight. For 5 years, every mining station and research facility that humans built in space had been designed with a secret purpose. They looked harmless, but they were actually parts of the most advanced defense network ever created. "Ma'am," said Dr. Susan Wright, entering the command center with a tablet full of data, "we have completed final analysis of the alien weapon. Demonstration. I think you will find this interesting." Dr. Wright was the chief scientist of Project Poseidon, humanity's most classified research program. She was a small woman with thick glasses, but her mind had solved problems that had stumped the best scientists on Earth. "Tell me," Hamilton said. "The Zephyrian plasma weapons are impressive, but they have serious limitations," Dr. Wright explained. "The energy buildup time makes them unsuitable for ship-to-ship combat against fast-moving targets. More importantly, the power drain means they can only fire their main weapons once every 15 minutes without risking damage to their own ships." Hamilton raised an eyebrow. "Are you saying their biggest strength is also their biggest weakness?" "Exactly, Doctor," Wright confirmed. "Their weapons are designed for destroying stationary targets like planets and space stations. Against a mobile fleet using proper tactics, they would be much less effective. And our weapons?" Dr. Wright's smile was confident. "Our gravitational collapse systems can fire continuously with no power drain from other ship systems. Each shot takes less than 3 seconds to charge, and the effective range is twice what their plasma cannons can achieve." Hamilton felt a surge of satisfaction. Humanity had not just built bigger ships in secret. They had developed completely new types of weapons based on scientific principles that the aliens had never encountered. Meanwhile, aboard the Zephyrian flagship Stellar Dominance, Admiral Kexvara was becoming impatient. The humans had been silent for 6 hours since his demonstration of power. He had expected them to surrender immediately after seeing what his weapons could do. "Any response from the human leadership?" he asked his communications officer. "No, Admiral. Their Captain Morrison requested technical details about our weapons, which we provided. Since then, they have been silent." Kexvara's crystal features showed annoyance. "Perhaps they need another demonstration. Target one of their orbital installations. Something closer to their homeworld." "Sir," interrupted his tactical officer Zixani, "I am detecting increased activity throughout their system. Multiple ships are launching from various locations." Kexvara studied his tactical display. The humans were indeed moving ships, but they were the same small vessels his fleet had already catalogued. Frigates, destroyers, and a few cruisers, all of which could be easily destroyed by Zephyrian weapons. "Let them gather their pathetic fleet," Kexvara said with contempt. "When we destroy it in a single battle, their surrender will be complete and total." What the alien admiral could not see was the true scope of human movement in the solar system. Hidden sensors detected his ship's changing position and immediately sent signals to assets that had been waiting in the darkness for years on the far side of Earth's moon. Massive blast doors opened in what appeared to be solid rock. The doors were so large that entire cities could have fit through them, but they had been perfectly camouflaged to look like natural crater walls. From these hidden bays, ships began to emerge. The first to appear was the UES Leviathan, humanity's secret flagship. At 4 kilometers in length, it was larger than any ship the aliens had detected in the human fleet. Its hull was covered in a matte black material that absorbed sensor scans, making it nearly invisible against the darkness of space. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the Leviathan's bridge, watching as his ship cleared the hidden lunar base. Around him, his crew worked at stations that looked nothing like the simple consoles on Earth's public ships. The technology here was years ahead of anything the aliens had seen. "All systems report ready, Captain," said Commander Kate Phillips, Morrison's second in command. She was a veteran officer who had been chosen for this mission because of her experience with experimental weapon systems. "Excellent," Morrison replied. "Signal Director Hamilton. Tell her the Leviathan is in position and ready for Phase 3. Throughout the solar system, similar scenes were playing out. Near Mars, what had appeared to be a small research station suddenly unfolded like a metal flower, revealing weapon platforms and defensive systems. In the asteroid belt, mining equipment transformed into gun turrets and missile launchers. Around Jupiter, entire fleets of warships began emerging from hiding places that the aliens had never suspected existed. Dr. Wright watched the deployment from her station in the command center. "All hidden assets are now active," she reported. "Gravitational shielding systems are functioning perfectly. Zephyrian still cannot detect our true fleet strength," Hamilton nodded. The gravitational shielding was another breakthrough that humanity had achieved in secret. By bending space around their ships, they could make large fleets appear as empty space to most sensors. It was the same technology that had allowed them to build massive installations without being detected. "Ma'am," Colonel Carter said, "Captain Morrison is requesting permission to decloak." Hamilton considered the timing. The Zephyrian fleet was in perfect position, far enough from Earth to prevent damage to the planet, but close enough that they could not escape if things went badly for them. "Tell Captain Morrison he is authorized to reveal the Leviathan," Hamilton ordered. "Let's see how Admiral Kexvara reacts when he realizes he has been completely outmaneuvered." Aboard the Stellar Dominance, Zixani suddenly shouted in alarm. "Admiral! I am detecting massive gravitational distortions throughout the system. Energy signatures are appearing everywhere." Kexvara rushed to his tactical station. The display showed readings that seemed impossible. Where moments before there had been empty space, now there were energy signatures indicating the presence of large objects, very large objects. "This cannot be accurate," Kexvara said, but his voice showed the first hint of doubt. "Run a full system diagnostic on all sensors?" "Sir, diagnostics show all systems functioning normally," Zixani replied. "The readings are accurate. We are detecting what appears to be a fleet of over 200 vessels, many of them larger than our own ships." Before Kexvara could respond, space in front of his fleet shimmered like water. The gravitational distortion cleared, and where there had been empty space, a massive black ship appeared. It was larger than anything in the Zephyrian fleet, and it was pointing directly at the alien formation. "Impossible," Kexvara whispered. "Where did it come from?" His communications officer looked up with fear in his crystalline eyes. "Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from the human vessel." The main screen activated, showing Captain Morrison on the bridge of his ship. But this was not the worried, frightened human captain that Kexvara had been speaking with earlier. This man looked calm, confident, and completely in control of the situation. "Admiral Kexvara," Morrison said politely, "I am Captain Jake Morrison, of the United Earthship Leviathan. I believe you wanted to discuss surrender terms. However, I think there may have been some confusion about who should be surrendering to whom." Kexvara stared at the human captain, his mind struggling to understand what had happened. His fleet of 12 mighty dreadnoughts was suddenly surrounded by human ships that had appeared from nowhere. Ships that his sensors said were larger and more powerful than anything the Confederation had ever built. "This is some kind of trick," Kexvara said, but his voice lacked conviction. Morrison smiled, and there was something predatory in that expression. "No trick, Admiral." Admiral Kexvara stared at the massive human ship that had appeared in front of his fleet. His crystal skin had turned a pale blue color, which among his species was a sign of deep shock. The vessel called Leviathan was not just large, it was radiating energy signatures that his instruments could barely measure. "Captain Morrison," Kexvara said, trying to keep his voice steady, "this ship was not present during our initial scans of your system. Our intelligence reported that your largest vessels were no more than 300 meters in length." Morrison's smile was calm but cold. "Admiral, your intelligence was based on what we wanted you to see. Humanity has a long tradition of hiding our true capabilities until we need them. We have a saying about speaking softly and carrying a big stick. This must be some form of deception," Kexvara insisted, though his voice lacked confidence. "A holographic projection or sensor manipulation?" "I understand your doubt," Morrison replied. "Dr. Wright, would you care to demonstrate our capabilities for our guests?" The view on the communication screen shifted to show Dr. Susan Wright at a control station that looked far more advanced than anything the Zephyrians had seen on human ships. Her equipment was sleek and efficient, with displays showing complex mathematical formulas that dealt with forces the aliens had never learned to control. "Admiral Kexvara," Dr. Wright said in a conversational tone, "your species has mastered plasma dynamics and energy projection. Very impressive technology for a civilization that relies on overwhelming force. However, humanity has chosen a different path. We have learned to manipulate the fundamental forces that hold the universe together." Dr. Wright gestured to a large asteroid floating nearby, roughly the same size as the mining station the Zephyrians had destroyed earlier. "Would you like to see how our weapons work?" Unlike the theatrical display that had accompanied the alien weapon firing, with its long charging time and dramatic energy buildup, the human demonstration was almost casual. Dr. Wright simply pressed a control on her console, and the effect was immediate. Space around the target asteroid began to twist and bend. The massive rock, which had existed for millions of years, suddenly began to compress. In less than 3 seconds, the entire asteroid collapsed in on itself, crushed by gravitational forces that squeezed it down to a point smaller than a marble. Then even that tiny point vanished, leaving only empty space where the asteroid had been. "Gravitational collapse weapon," Dr. Wright explained as if she were discussing the weather. "We create localized fields that compress matter beyond the molecular level. Very clean, very efficient, and unlike your plasma cannons, it requires no reduction in power to other ship systems." The silence from the Zephyrian fleet stretched for nearly a full minute. When Kexvara finally found his voice, it was barely a whisper. "How many ships like this do you possess?" Commander Kate Phillips answered from her position on the Leviathan's bridge. "The Leviathan is our flagship, Admiral, but she is not alone. Computer, display the true size of Task Force Prometheus." Throughout the solar system, the gravitational shielding that had hidden humanity's real fleet began to deactivate. Ships appeared from behind planets, emerged from asteroid fields, and materialized from what had seemed like empty space. The aliens watched in growing horror as their tactical displays filled with contact after contact. Near Mars, battle stations the size of small cities revealed themselves. Around Jupiter, entire fleets of human warships cast off their camouflage. In the asteroid belt, what had appeared to be simple mining platforms unfolded into weapons platforms bristling with advanced technology. "Computer analysis complete," Phillips reported. "Total human fleet strength now visible to Zephyrian sensors, 237 combat vessels, ranging from destroyers to dreadnoughts, plus 43 orbital defense platforms and 12 mobile battle stations." Morrison turned back to address the alien admiral. "And this is just our home defense force, Admiral. We have been preparing for this day for quite some time. Kexvara studied his tactical displays with growing despair. Each human vessel, even the smallest destroyers, showed energy readings that matched or exceeded his largest ships. The battle stations were beyond anything in the Confederation's experience, and there were so many of them. Your species, Kexvara said slowly, has been planning for war. Not war, Admiral, Morrison corrected. Defense. There is a difference. Your Confederation conquers primitive worlds by overwhelming them with superior numbers and firepower. That strategy works well against species that are still learning basic space travel. It is much less effective against a civilization that has mastered technologies your people have never encountered. Dr. Wright activated another display, showing detailed scans of the HFY ships. We have been studying your vessels since you arrived, Admiral. Your plasma weapons are indeed powerful, but they have significant limitations. The charging time, the power requirements, the relatively short range compared to our gravitational systems. Your ships are designed for bombardment, not for fleet combat against equal opponents. That is impossible, Zixani protested from his station aboard the Stellar Dominance. The Confederation has conquered 400 star systems. Our military technology is the most advanced in this region of the galaxy. Morrison's expression grew serious. Your technology is advanced compared to the species you have been conquering, yes. But Admiral, there are threats in this galaxy that make both our fleets look like toys. Ancient civilizations with weapons that can destroy entire star systems. Machine intelligences that convert whole planets into computing devices. Entities that exist partially outside normal space and time. What are you talking about? Kexvara demanded. The galaxy is far more dangerous than your Confederation realizes, Morrison continued. Your 400 star systems have been fortunate to avoid encountering the real powers that exist out there. Species that make our little demonstration look trivial in comparison. Commander Phillips brought up long-range sensor data on the main display. Admiral, we have been tracking several of these threats for years. There are things moving between the galaxies that view both our civilizations as nothing more than potential resources to be consumed. Dr. Wright nodded grimly. Why do you think we developed gravitational collapse weapons? Your plasma technology is effective against conventional targets, but there are entities out there with adaptive armor that learns from each attack. Hit them with plasma, and they become immune to plasma within minutes. The weight of this revelation seemed to settle over the Zephyrian bridge crew. Their admiral, who had arrived in the solar system confident in his superiority, now found himself confronting the possibility that his entire understanding of galactic power structures was wrong. Captain Morrison, Kexvara said carefully, what exactly are you proposing? Morrison leaned forward in his command chair. An alliance, Admiral. Not as conquerors and subjects, but as equals. Your plasma technology combined with our gravitational manipulation could create defensive systems beyond what either of our species could develop alone. Your 400 star systems plus Earth's growing colonial network could establish a defensive perimeter that might actually matter when the real threats reveal themselves. You speak of threats we have never encountered, Kexvara said. How do we know they truly exist? That was when Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez looked up from her sensor station with an expression of alarm. Captain, I am detecting new contacts at the edge of the solar system, large contacts. They are not broadcasting any identification signals. Morrison felt his blood turn cold. The timing could not be worse. Or perhaps it was exactly what was needed to convince the Zephyrians that humanity was telling the truth about galactic threats. On screen, Morrison ordered. The main display shifted to show the outer edge of the solar system. There, emerging from the darkness between stars, were ships unlike anything either the humans or Zephyrians had ever seen. They were massive, dark vessels that seemed to absorb light itself. Their hulls showed no clear design features, no obvious weapons or engines, yet they moved with purpose and intelligence. Dear Crystal, Zixani whispered from the Zephyrian ship. What are those things? Dr. Wright checked her instruments and her face went pale. Captain, those ships are registering as 8 kilometers in length each. Energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. They are not broadcasting on any known frequencies, but they are definitely scanning both our fleets. Morrison turned back to Admiral Kexvara. Admiral, I need you to make a decision right now. Those ships belong to something we call the Devourers. They are not here to negotiate or conquer. They are here to harvest every living thing in this system, including your people and mine. Kexvara stared at the approaching vessels with growing horror. How long have you known about these creatures? We have been tracking their approach for 2 years, Morrison admitted. They move from system to system, consuming all biological matter to fuel their expansion across the galaxy. Admiral, everything I have told you about needing allies against greater threats? This is exactly what I was talking about. The lead Devourer ship began transmitting, not in any recognizable language, but in pure mathematical concepts that both human and Zephian translation systems could interpret. Captain Morrison did not hesitate when Admiral Kexvara asked for his recommendation. The approaching Devourer ships were moving faster than any vessel should be able to travel, their dark hulls cutting through space like knives through water. Combined fleet operations, Morrison said immediately. Your ships provide covering fire with rotating plasma frequencies to prevent their armor from adapting. Our gravitational weapons will target their power cores and structural weak points. Adapting armor? Kexvara asked. What do you mean? Dr. Wright answered from her station. The Devourers learn from every attack. Hit them with the same weapon twice and they become immune to that weapon type. Your plasma cannons will be effective for exactly 1 shot against each target. After that, you need to change the frequency, power level, or attack angle. Commander Phillips was already coordinating with both fleets. All human vessels prepare for Combined Operations Protocol 7. Zephyrian ships, please transmit your tactical communication frequencies so we can coordinate our attacks. The next few minutes were chaos as 2 fleets that had been enemies moments before suddenly had to work together to survive. Zephyrian tactical officers worked frantically to establish secure communication links with human ships, while both fleets began moving into defensive positions around Earth. Sir, reported Lieutenant Rodriguez from the Leviathan sensor station, the Devourer ships are launching smaller craft. Hundreds of them, Morrison studied the tactical display. The smaller ships were each about the size of a human destroyer, but they moved with perfect coordination, like parts of a single organism. Those are harvester drones. They latch onto enemy ships and begin converting the crew and materials into energy. Converting the crew? Kexvara asked, his crystal features showing horror. The Devourers do not kill, Dr. Wright explained grimly. They transform living beings into part of their collective consciousness while using their bodies as raw materials. Death would be more merciful. The first wave of harvester drones reached the outer edge of the combined fleet formation. Morrison gave the order that would determine whether 2 civilizations lived or died. All ships engage. The battle that followed was unlike anything either species had experienced. Human gravitational weapons created invisible fields of crushing, force that tore the harvester drones apart at the molecular level. Zephyrian plasma cannons fired in carefully coordinated sequences, their energy frequencies shifting constantly to prevent the Devourer technology from adapting. Direct hits on the lead harvester squadron, Rodriguez reported. But the remaining drones are already showing resistance to our initial gravitational frequency. Dr. Wright quickly adjusted the weapon settings, switching to variable field resonance. That should keep them confused for a few more minutes. The UES Leviathan moved through the battle like a predator among prey. Her main gravitational projector created collapse fields that encompassed entire squadrons of harvester drones, crushing them into points of superdense matter that vanished into nothingness. But for every drone they destroyed, more appeared from the massive Devourer ships. The alien vessels hung back, allowing their smaller craft to probe the defenses while they analyzed every weapon used against them. Captain, called Commander Phillips, the Zephyrian ship Crystal Storm reports that their plasma cannons are losing effectiveness. The drones are adapting faster than they can change frequencies. Morrison opened a communication channel to the Zephyrian flagship. Admiral Kexvara, pull your ships back to the second defensive line. We need to try a different approach. What do you have in mind? Kexvara asked. Dr. Wright, can our gravitational projectors affect their main ships at this range? Morrison asked. Dr. Wright studied her instruments. Possibly, but those vessels are much larger than anything we have tested our weapons against. We might need to coordinate multiple ships to generate enough gravitational force? Do it, Morrison ordered. All human dreadnoughts, target the nearest Devourer battleship. Synchronize gravitational collapse on my mark. 6 human ships, each one equipped with gravitational manipulation technology, focus their weapons on a single target. The Devourer vessel was 8 kilometers of dark metal and unknown technology. But when the human weapons fired together, even that massive ship began to compress. For a moment, it looked like the attack would succeed. The alien ship's hull began to buckle under the gravitational pressure. But then something unexpected happened. The other Devourer ships fired beams of energy at their damaged companion, and the gravitational field around it suddenly dispersed. They are supporting each other, Dr. Wright said with surprise. Their ships can share energy to resist our weapons. Morrison felt a chill run down his spine. The Devourers were not just adapting to individual attacks, they were learning fleet-level tactics in real time. Sir, Rodriguez called out, the harvester drones are changing their approach. They are no longer attacking our ships directly. They are heading for Earth itself. Morrison looked at the tactical display and saw the terrible truth. While the combined human and Zephyrian fleets had been focused on destroying the drones, hundreds of them had slipped past the defensive lines. They were now diving toward Earth's atmosphere, intent on beginning the harvest of humanity's homeworld. All ships, break formation, Morrison ordered. Pursue those drones. Do not let them reach the planet's surface. But there were too many drones and not enough ships to stop them all. Some of the harvester craft were going to get through, and once they landed on Earth, they would begin converting everything they touched into resources for the Devourer fleet. That was when Admiral Kexvara made a decision that would be remembered for generations. All Zephyrian vessels, he broadcast on an open channel, maximum power to plasma cores. We are going to overload our weapons beyond safe parameters. Admiral, Morrison called out, that could destroy your entire fleet. Kexvara's voice was calm and determined. Captain, if those creatures harvest this system, they will have enough energy to threaten my homeworld and every other civilization in this part of the galaxy. Sometimes survival requires sacrifice. The 12 Zephyrian ships began to glow as their plasma cores were pushed far beyond normal operating limits. But instead of targeting the Devourer ships, they turned their weapons toward the gas giant Jupiter, which hung in space like a massive target. What are they doing? Phillips asked. Dr. Wright suddenly understood. They are going to destabilize Jupiter. The energy release will be enormous. All human ships, emergency retreat. Morrison ordered. Get to minimum safe distance from Jupiter. Immediately. The Zephyrian fleet fired as one, their overloaded plasma weapons striking Jupiter with more energy than had ever been released in the solar system. The gas giant, which had existed for billions of years, began to collapse in on itself, but Jupiter was too massive to simply explode. Instead, it began a runaway fusion reaction that turned the entire planet into a temporary star. The energy release was so intense that it could be seen from neighboring star systems. Dr. Wright was already working at her station, her fingers flying over the controls. Captain, we can use Jupiter's destruction as a weapon. The gravitational shock waves can be focused through our projectors. Do it! Morrison ordered every human ship with gravitational manipulation. Technology turned toward the expanding shockwave of Jupiter's death. Instead of trying to avoid the massive energy release, they channeled it through their weapon systems, creating the largest artificial gravitational disturbance in recorded galactic history. The effect on the Devourer fleet was immediate and catastrophic. The harvester drones caught between Earth and Jupiter were crushed instantly as space itself twisted around them. The massive Devourer battleships, for all their advanced technology, could not resist the gravitational forces of an exploding planet focused through human technology. One by one, the dark ships were pulled apart, their hulls unable to withstand the distorted spacetime around them. In less than 10 minutes, the entire Devourer fleet had been destroyed, reduced to scattered atoms floating in the void where Jupiter had once been. When the chaos finally ended, the solar system was forever changed. Where Jupiter had been, there was now only an expanding cloud of superheated gas. Several of the Zephyrian ships had been damaged by their weapon overloads, and the human fleet had taken casualties from the gravitational backlash, but they had won. The Devourer threat was eliminated, and both civilizations had survived. "Admiral Kexvara," Morrison called across the communication channel, "your people's sacrifice saved every living being in this system." Kexvara's voice was tired but satisfied. "And your technology made that sacrifice meaningful, Captain." "About that alliance you mentioned earlier." Morrison smiled, though his heart was heavy from the losses they had sustained. "I think Director Hamilton will be very interested in discussing mutual defense agreements. After all, if there are more threats like the Devourers out there, we are going to need all the friends we can get." As rescue operations began for the damaged ships from both fleets, leaders from two civilizations started planning for a future where cooperation would replace conquest. The galaxy had just become a much more dangerous place. 3 days after the battle that destroyed Jupiter, representatives from Earth and the Zephyrian Confederation met aboard the UES Leviathan. The massive human ship floated in the space where Jupiter's moon Europa had once orbited, now serving as a neutral meeting ground for two species that had learned to respect each other through shared sacrifice. Director Lisa Hamilton arrived from Earth with a small delegation of diplomats and scientists. She was accompanied by Dr. Susan Wright, whose gravitational technology had proven crucial in the battle against the Devourers. Admiral Kexvara came with his own advisors, including his tactical officer Zixani, who had impressed the humans with his quick thinking during the crisis. Captain Morrison welcomed both groups to his ship's main conference room, a large space with windows that showed the glowing remnants of what had been Jupiter. The destruction of the gas giant served as a reminder of the price they had all paid for survival. "Admiral Kexvara," Hamilton began, "I want to thank you and your people for what you did. Without your sacrifice, Earth would have fallen to the Devourers." Kexvara's crystal features showed a mix of sadness and determination. "Director Hamilton, my ships destroyed Jupiter, but your technology made that destruction meaningful. Neither of our fleets could have defeated the Devourers alone." Dr. Wright activated a holographic display in the center of the table. It showed star charts covering hundreds of light-years around both Earth and the Zephyrian home systems. Red markers indicated known Devourer activity, while green markers showed the locations of other advanced civilizations. "The threat we faced. Here was just one small fleet," Dr. Wright explained. "Our long-range sensors have detected at least 12 other Devourer groups moving through this region of the galaxy. Some of them are much larger than what we just fought." Zixani studied the display with obvious concern. "How large are we talking about?" "The largest group we have detected consists of over 50 ships, each one bigger than the vessels we destroyed here," Dr. Wright replied. "If that fleet decided to attack either of our civilizations alone, we would not survive." Hamilton leaned forward in her chair. "But working together, we might have a chance. Your plasma technology and our gravitational manipulation could create new types of weapons. Your 400 star systems combined with our colonial network could establish a defensive perimeter that covers a significant portion of this galactic region." Admiral Kexvara considered this proposal carefully. The Zephyrian Confederation had spent centuries conquering other species, building their empire through superior firepower and tactical coordination. The idea of true cooperation with equals was foreign to them, but the battle against the Devourers had shown them that some threats were too great for any single civilization to face. What exactly are you proposing? Kexvara asked. Captain Morrison activated another section of the holographic display. A mutual defense alliance. Neither species attempts to conquer or control the other. Instead, we share technology, coordinate our fleets, and establish joint research programs to develop new defensive capabilities. The benefits would be enormous, Dr. Wright added. Your plasma weaponry is more energy efficient than anything we have developed. Combined with our gravitational field manipulation, we could create weapons that are both powerful and adaptable. Zixani looked at the star charts and pointed to several systems near the border between human and Zephyrian space. These systems contain species that are still developing space travel technology. What happens to them in this alliance? Hamilton smiled. We protect them. One of the things we learned from studying the Devourers is that they target developing civilizations first. Young species cannot defend themselves against advanced threats, so they become easy prey. You are suggesting that we become protectors instead of conquerors? Kexvara asked. I am suggesting that we become something better than either of our species has been before, Hamilton replied. The galaxy is full of wonders, Admiral. Civilizations that have developed art, music, philosophy, and science in ways that neither humans nor Zephyrians have imagined. Instead of conquering them, we could learn from them. Morrison brought up images of several alien species that human exploration teams had encountered in recent years. We have made contact with the Melodic Collective, a species that communicates through complex musical patterns. The geometric builders create living architecture that grows and adapts to environmental changes. The crystal gardeners have learned to cultivate crystals that can store and process information more efficiently than our best computers. These species have technologies and knowledge that could benefit everyone, Dr. Wright added. But they also need protection from threats like the Devourers. An alliance between our civilizations could provide that protection while fostering scientific and cultural exchange. Zixani was studying the technical specifications that the humans had. Shared about their gravitational weapons? Your technology operates on principles that our scientists have never considered. How long would it take to train our engineers to understand these systems? We estimate 6 months for basic understanding, 2 years for advanced applications. Dr. Wright replied. Of course, your people would need to share their plasma technology with our scientists as well. Admiral Kexvara was quiet for several minutes, considering the proposal from every angle. His species had built their empire through conquest, but that same empire was now threatened by enemies they could not defeat alone. The humans had demonstrated technology that was clearly superior in many ways, yet they were offering partnership instead of demanding surrender. There is something I must tell you, Kexvara finally said. The Confederation has not been entirely honest about our situation. We did not come to Earth simply because we detected your technological development. Hamilton raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? 3 months ago, one of our outer colonies was attacked by creatures similar to the Devourers, Kexvara admitted. The entire population of 12 million people simply vanished. Our investigation teams found evidence of the same energy signatures we detected from the ships we just fought. Morrison felt a chill run down his spine. You came here looking for allies, not subjects? Yes, Kexvara confirmed. Our military commanders believe that if we could force Earth to join the Confederation, your industrial capacity could help us build enough ships to defend our territory. But after seeing your true capabilities, I realized that conquest would have gained us nothing compared to what cooperation could achieve. Dr. Wright activated a new display showing long-range sensor data. Admiral, we have been tracking Devourer movements for 2 years. Based on their patterns, we believe your missing colony was a scouting attack. They were testing your defenses in preparation for a larger assault. How much time do we have? Zixani asked. Our best estimate is 18 months before a major Devourer fleet reaches Zephyrian space, Dr. Wright replied. But if we work together, we can be ready for them. Hamilton stood up and extended her hand to Admiral Kexvara. So what do you say, Admiral? Are we allies? Kexvara looked at the human hand extended toward him, then at the star charts showing the vast threats and opportunities that lay ahead. He had come to this system expecting to add another conquered species to the Confederation's empire. Instead, he had found something that might be far more valuable. "We are allies," Kexvara said, taking Hamilton's hand in his crystalline grip. The formal negotiations took 3 more days, but the foundation of the alliance was established in that moment. Within weeks, Zephyrian scientists would begin arriving at human research facilities to study gravitational manipulation technology. Human engineers would travel to Confederation worlds to learn about plasma dynamics and energy projection systems. Joint military exercises would be scheduled to develop new tactical doctrines that combined the strengths of both fleets. Young officers from both species would train together, learning to think of their former enemies as trusted companions. Most importantly, exploration teams would be sent to contact other civilizations throughout the region, offering protection and alliance to species that were willing to join the growing coalition. Against the darkness that moved between the stars, Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the Leviathan, watching as the first Zephyrian research vessel approached the human lunar facilities. The ship's hull gleamed with the same blue light as Admiral Kexvara's flagship, but now it carried scientists instead of weapons. "Commander Phillips," Morrison said to his second-in-command, "signal Earth Command. Tell them that Phase 4 is beginning." "What is Phase 4, sir?" Phillips asked. Morrison smiled as he watched human and Zephyrian ships working together to establish the first joint research station. "Phase 4 is when we stop hiding and start building something that a galaxy has never seen before. An alliance of free species working together not for conquest, but for survival and discovery." In the months that followed, the alliance would grow to include dozens of civilizations. New technologies would be developed that combined the knowledge of multiple species. Fleets would be built that could protect entire regions of space from threats that no single world could face alone. And when the Devourers came again, as everyone knew they would find not scattered,